Order. I call the Honourable Mary Ann Street.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I love my job, but every now and then it really rocks. And this is one of those moments. Every now and then that we have in this House when I know in my very being that I'm doing something good, something right, something life-changing. Tonight is one of those moments. I too would like to acknowledge the former MPs who are in the House tonight, Marilyn Waring, Catherine Rich, Georgina Beyer and Tim Barnett, each of whom in their time in this House has supported the values that this bill represents. It is good to have you here, all of you, on this occasion, and I pay a tribute to you. In my inaugural speech to Parliament in 2005, Mr. Speaker, I railed against our tendency as a nation to drive some people to the margins of our society and then despise them for being there. I talked of the lazy notion of political correctness and how that label was used, dripping with sarcasm, to denigrate and destroy anything that was inclusive, compassionate, tolerant or forward-looking. Tonight, I am here to help include the marginalised, equalise the law for the outlaws, and put one more nail in the coffin of legal discrimination in New Zealand. I want to thank my colleague Larissa Wall for the opportunity to do this. I pay tribute to her for her courage, her strength and her leadership throughout this issue. She has been supported by a large team of enthusiastic supporters and helpers, both inside and outside of this House, and I thank them all as well from the bottom of my heart. I come at this issue from a simple starting point. There are no grounds in this country on which discrimination under the law should occur on the basis of one's sexual orientation or gender identity. We all sit somewhere on the sexuality continuum, some closer to one end than the other, some in the middle, still others at one point, at one time in their lives, and at quite another point at other times in their lives. I have seen examples of all of these up close and personal. The injustice of discriminating before the law against someone because of who they are, not because of what they do, but of who they are intrinsically, is wrong. And we are past it in 2013. Those famous words of Shylock in The Merchant of Venice come to mind. Hath not a Jew eyes? Hath not a Jew hands, organs, dimensions, senses, affections, passions? Fed with the same food, hurt with the same weapons, subject to the same diseases, healed by the same means, warmed and cooled by the same winter and summer as a Christian is? If you prick us, do we not bleed? If you tickle us, do we not laugh? If you poison us, do we not die? And I would add, and if we are not equal before the law, are we not lesser beings? So I come at the issue of marriage equality simply on the basis of equality before the law. I'm gay, but I don't wish to get married. I've never wanted to get married. It doesn't mean that I don't cherish the relationship I have with as much ardour as any married person. But I don't want not to be able to marry because the law discriminates against me. That is the point for me. This position has been driven home for me by working closely for years with a group of young people in Nelson called Q Youth. This is an alliance of straight, gay and transgender young people and adults who began at Nayland College many years ago to build a safe and supportive environment for young people who were questioning or wrestling with their sexuality. It includes adults who are parents, teachers, counsellors, professional people and me, who all want the same thing, for these young people to grow up in safety, free from discrimination, free from bullying, free from violence and unsafe practices, so that they can be who they truly are. I want to acknowledge in particular Seb Stewart, who was a mentor to many of these people, and Tabby Besley and Joseph Habgood, who are in the gallery tonight, who have offered much in the way of leadership, along with numerous other wonderful, clever and brave Nelson young people. Through that work, I met many questioning young Nelson people who had all suffered to a greater or lesser degree because of being made to feel like an outcast, an outlaw. Some had cut themselves. Some had punished themselves with drug and alcohol abuse. Some had become mentally unwell. Some had attempted suicide. Some were hugely supported by their parents. They were the lucky ones. Some were rejected by their parents. They were not so lucky. Equality before the law is the start. If there is a benign legislative regime, there will be over time different behaviour and greater acceptance. Laws only alter behaviour, not attitudes. But attitudes come eventually when people see that the sky hasn't fallen and their own rights are not diminished by extending them to others. But when one is growing up, like these young people in Nelson from whom I've learned so much, one can sense discrimination and a lack of acceptance at 500 paces. It sits on your shoulder like a vulture, waiting for you to fall and to be pecked to death. Little by little, stroke by stroke, young people are diminished and reduced unless they can find a safe place to be. So this law isn't really about me as a lesbian woman at all. It is about creating a just and tolerant society which is safe for our young people to grow up in. For those who have a different worldview from mine, can I simply say that I would stick up for your rights to equality before the law as well. Finally, I return to my inaugural speech in this House. At the end of it, I referred to my daughter and said that I hoped that whenever the time came for me to leave this place, that I would leave our society improved in some measure for her sake. She was born to 2 mothers and 2 fathers. She has never lacked for love, support, guidance and care. In fact, it's possible she's had twice as much of it than most children in a 2-parent family. She has been and remains a great joy to all of us. She deserves a world where her family is as accepted as anyone else's. She said to me, of course, as she was proofing my speech tonight, that her world would have been very different growing up if there had been social acceptance around our family. She doesn't regret it for herself, but she does wish it for other people. She's a good girl. Our actions here must always be about the future. We leave this world to others, especially our young people. Let's make it a better, fairer, kinder place than we found it. Let's pass this bill.
Order. The Honourable